A 240-day, 9-month, 36-race season reaches its conclusion this afternoon. The Motul FIM Superbike World Championship will be back in February to start all over again and returns to Jerez de la Frontera for the Prometean Spanish round and next year's season finale. But in the meanwhile, the final action of 2024 is on its way. The 4.4-kilometre Circuito de Jerez Ángel Nieto is where the Prometean Spanish round was inaugurated in 1990. This is our 11th visit. The lowest top speeds of the season, with the two longest straights measuring just 600 metres, but both are followed by second-gear corners, requiring heavy braking. And where there's heavy braking, there's Toprak Razgatlioglu. Coming up, two moves over the 200-metre stopping distance into Turn 1, named Expo 92. Watch out for moves into Turn 5 after two race-leading overtakes there this morning. But the most famous action hotspot is Turn 6, renamed in 2019 after Dani Pedrosa's racing retirement. From top speeds of up to 286.5 kph, 5 seconds on the brakes into the hairpin, down to just 65 kilometres per hour. The circuit demanding on tyres too. 4 consecutive right-hand bends precede the left-hand final turn, the Lorenzo curve, another low-speed corner to end the lap. After breaking the lap record yesterday by 0.6 of a second, Nicolo Bulliger broke the championship's longest-standing race lap record this morning by almost half a second. "13 wins in succession for Toprak Razgatlioglu before his Magny-Cours practice crash. Just 2 wins from 8 races since his return. Manufacturers world champions Ducati have had the upper hand over BMW in the latter stages of this season. Toprak suffered defeats to Iannone and Bautista in Aragon, and 3 in the last 4 races to Nicolo Bulliger. Yesterday we put Razgatlioglu's defeat down to his need to bring home a safe podium to claim the world title. This morning he was beaten in hand-to-hand combat, passing Bulliger on lap 2 at Turn 5, only to lose out at the same corner 4 laps later. Bulliger marching away to a 3-second win. Steve English alongside me for race 2 of the 2024 Prometean Spanish round. Toprak Razgatlioglu hoping for a fitting finale, but as we've seen really in the last 2 rounds, Nicolo Bulliger has other ideas.
Bulliger was so impressive in Estoril with his Superpole race victory. He was setting a great pace in yesterday's race to break Toprak in race 1, and then this morning, the second half of the race, he just opened up a margin over Razgatlioglu. So race 2 here, 20 laps. Bulliger starts as your favourite.
Top 4 finished in the order they started in this morning's Tissot Superpole race. Razgatlioglu and Bulliger changing places and changing back. Danilo Petrucci closing in on Alex Lowes but not finding a way through. And the main action was further back. Alvaro Bautista passing Jonathan Rea on lap 9, and then Dominic Egerter on the last lap for 9th and a single point. Garrett Gerloff passing Andrea Iannone for 7th but losing the place to a post-race track limits penalty. Michael van der Mark attacking Andrea Locatelli on the last lap but coming up short. So Steve, as ever, good action right the way through the field in World SBK.
Yeah, it really was. That battle for Alvaro Bautista, those final laps to be able to come through and claim that all-important final point in 9th position. His reward is moving up from the 5th row of the grid to the 3rd row of the grid.
Yes, important result that for Alvaro Bautista, worth just a single point, but worth much more in terms of his opportunities now for this race 2 this afternoon. It's over 20 laps. Bautista only had 10 laps to try and come through this morning, and more opportunities to bring himself into podium contention. Realistically, we're probably looking at a head-to-head between Bulliger and Razgatlioglu again for the race victory itself, but a separate fight you fancy for the podium places.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where realistically we're looking to see whether or not that Toprak's able to go with Bulliger at the front of the field, and then it's a question of what we're able to see from everyone else, if they're able to make a step to be able to challenge for that final step of the podium.
Nicolo Bulliger then with back-to-back race victories, 3 in the last 4. 38 points behind Toprak Razgatlioglu, and obviously only 25 points available here, so the championship itself is settled in favour of Toprak. But Bulliger enjoying some late season form, and that sets him up very nicely for 2025, when of course he will once again partner Alvaro Bautista on the Aruba IT Ducati.
Yeah, really important for him to go into the winter knowing that he's a rider that's able to win the World World Championship next season, and making the steps that are important to really put all those things together.
Only 2 victories since his return from injury for Toprak Razgat Lioglu, missing a couple of rounds in September. Certainly made him sweat on the World Championship, but got the job done here 24 hours ago with the podium finish he needed. Now the only remaining question is whether he can deny Bulega his hat-trick and end his sensational 2024 season on a winning note.
And for Toprak, it's all about trying to get that job done. He said after the Superpole race this morning that he was riding relaxed. He's already done his job for this season, and the season's finished for him in a lot of ways, he said yesterday after winning that World Championship. But we know once the lights go out, he's going to try and make sure that he puts on a bit of a show here to end the season.
The contrast between Alvaro Bautista and Nicolo Bulega. Bulega with 2 race victories and 37 points in Jerez so far. Alvaro Bautista with just 1 point to his name. Miserable start to the weekend for the outgoing world champion of 2023. He too will be back to have another go. It's the final race of this 2024 campaign. Let's once again, for one final time, take a look through the runners and riders in our fields. No change to the top 4 on the grid after the Superpole race. Andrea Locatelli gains a position to 5th. Michael van der Mark gains 2 to 6th. Lecuona P5 and Vierke P7 after Superpole crashed out this morning. Michael Ruben Rinaldi could only finish 13th. So 3 new entries into the top 9, all on the 3rd row of the grid. Andrea Iannone climbs from 11th to 7th. Garrett Gerloff from 10th to 8th. And Alvaro Bautista squeezes in by just 0.4 of a second. Dominic Egerter and Jonathan Rea just missing out. Important in particular for Bautista, 6 places gained from his lowly 15th place grid position earlier this weekend. Steve English alongside me. Plenty of change to that pecking order then as we build up to race 2 this afternoon.
Yeah, no Iker Lecuona on the grid for race 2 as well to finish off the season. And for Iker, it's a bit of a shame to end the year the way that this season is going to end, but such a strong season from him in the second half of the year. Much more consistent from Honda, and plenty of reasons for encouragement going into the winter and into next season.
Broken outside of his left foot forces Iker Lecuona's withdrawal from this race 2 this afternoon. Xavi Vierke has been given a long lap penalty for his part in that incident, so that's going to hamstrung the 2 Hondas really, because Vierke dropping down to P10 and with that long lap penalty still to serve.
Yeah, you can see the immediate concern there for Xavi, for his teammate, and these things happen whenever you're racing in the close battle in the midfield, particularly in those early laps of a race. And unfortunately for Vierge and for Honda, they obviously lose Iker Lecuona from this race. They also have a penalty incoming for Xavi for his part in the incident.
And it ends their run of consecutive scoring for both of their riders, because they have been on good form of late, the Hondas.
Yeah, the Honda's been in great form right the way back to Portimao in the Superpole race for Xavi Vierge. He's ran inside the top 10. The highlight for the team, obviously the podium last week out in Estoril.
Making our way up through the order then, a couple of riders that didn't quite manage to make it into the top 9 positions earlier on today. Dominic Egerter and Jonathan Rea, and they've got to do it all over again here from the 5th row of the grid. But no change to your front row. It's Nicolo Bulega, Toprak Razgat Lioglu and Alex Lowes. Let's go through the field then, starting with your pole sitter. Bulega, unbeaten man so far here in Jerez. His 52 points last time out at the Estoril round, his best in World SBK, but it's 3 wins in 4 races now. Bulega topped the timesheets by 0.6 of a second in Superpole, victorious in race 1 by a commanding margin, and did the job once again, this time from behind in the second half of the Superpole race earlier on today.
Yeah, not even Bulega would have expected the season he's had, but in the Superpole race, the last Superpole race of the season, this is his race-winning overtake on Toprak, and from that point on, he just had more grip than Razgat Lioglu. He had more bike, and he had more speed, and he opened up a margin of over 2 seconds at the flag.
Only the world champions plus Danilo Petrucci have managed a hat-trick in World SBK, but Nicolo Bulega is 2/3 of the way there.
And a real opportunity to do it now in this one, and in an important milestone for him to be able to tick off the boxes going into the winter as well, because if you want to win the championship next year, you are going to have to be able to take those 62 points at some stage over race weekends.
Alongside him on the front row of the grid here, Toprak Razgatli-Oglu. BMW, of course, never winners here in Jerez. It's been second all the way through the weekend for Toprak thus far, second in the Superpole session, in race 1, and ultimately in the Superpole race. Only those 2 victories in the 8 races since his return from injury. We got rather used to seeing him dominating weekends as he did in Misano, Donington Park, Most and Portimao unbeaten. But this time, it's an opportunity for his direct rival, Nicolo Bulliger. Completing the front row of the grid, Alex Lowes, third in the Superpole race, his first podium since the Superpole race at the Italian round. Lost 4th position in the championship after missing day 2 in Aragon. He is 8 points up versus Danilo Petrucci, but 14 points gained in Jerez so far this weekend.
Yeah, and that podium really important for Lowes as well, just to make sure that in the Superpole race he's able to show just how good he is, and 8 podiums through the course of 12 this year really is a good sign of the progress he's made all the way through this season. The switch to working with Parariba has worked out really well for him and for Kawasaki.
Yeah, certainly enjoys the Superpole race format, but he also did a good job in the longer race 1 yesterday afternoon. Came home in 4th position, just couldn't quite find a way through on Andrea Locatelli after the Yamaha man jumped him at the start. So another podium finish here is very much a possibility for Alex Lowes to conclude what has been a solid season out of the shadow of Jonathan Rea at KRT. Continuing through the grid with the second row then, this is Andrea Locatelli, who completed the podium with 3rd position yesterday. He was 5th in the Superpole race earlier on today to climb a place from his original grid slot of P6. 21 points so far this weekend in Jerez. That's actually more than any full round since Most, and there's still 1 race to come. Michael van der Mark completes the second row, 6th for him in the Superpole race, climbing from 8th in the Superpole session yesterday morning. He's got a battle with Andrea Locatelli, lost 6 points in race 1 in that tussle for 6th overall, but he is still 5 points up coming into the final race of the season.
I'm impressed Sean Muir doesn't need the sunglasses after celebrating last night. It would have been an important one for everyone within BMW for that, and Van der Mark's included in that as well. He's been pivotal in their success this season as well. The way he works with Toprak, the way that they're able to keep that harmony within the pit box. And Van der Mark, obviously the race victory is the highlight for Magny-Cours, but he's been able to put together a really solid, consistent season.
And completing the 6 riders on the front 2 rows of the grid here, Danilo Petrucci, retirement for him at turn 5 yesterday. He'd been pushed wide a couple of corners prior by Alex Lowes and then was collected once he had returned into the pack. Did bounce back though for a 4th place in the Superpole race this morning, so he's still right in the mix, but only 20 points from 5 races for Petrucci, harming his cause in the battle for 4th overall.
Yeah, Cremona shows how good he is, and now it's a case of trying to finish the season strong.
A bit of local flavour then down on the grid, and Kiko Giles was taking it all in.
I was, Alex, down here with Nicolo Bulliger. He's just put his helmet and gloves on, so he's ready to go. Nicolo, what's the strategy for this race? Can you make it 3 wins?
Yeah, I will try to do my best, like always. No strategy, just push 100% and try to make my pace.
Nicolo, all the best.
Short and sweet as ever there from Nicolo Bolliger, with his game face on and with his helmet and gloves on, all ready to go, as you heard there from Kiko. And here he is, your Best Lap Award winner from race 1 yesterday. In fact, he comes into this final race of the season tied in the Best Lap Award with Toprak Razgatlioglu, which is a measure of his single lap pace. He has also won the Tissot Superpole Award this season, Nicolo Bolliger.
Yeah, he's been able to do a great job over single laps to show his speed, and over the course of the season to show that consistency, all those podiums, but now the opportunity to win 3 races in a weekend.
On then with the third row of the grid, and this is Andrea Iannone. Disappointing weekend, honestly, for him so far. He was 12th in race 1, the same position he started on the grid. Did manage to gain enough places to take 7th in the Superpole race, but he's been beaten by Michael van der Mark in both races here in Jerez, and he's 11 points behind him in P6. Iannone sits down in 8th overall.
Yeah, unfortunately for Iannone, it's just been an inconsistent season. One week to the next, you're not really sure what you're going to get. And on his good weekends, we've been able to see him win that race in Aragon and be at the front, challenge for podiums, and on his bad weekends he's been a bit further down the order, but a good chance to finish the season with a top 5 here.
8th in the Superpole race for Garrett Gerloff, who was 10th in on the grid and in race 1 yesterday. But as far as the Superpole race is concerned, his 4th top 9 result in 5 rounds. This, of course, will be his final race for Bonovo and BMW. First point of the weekend this morning for Alvaro Bautista, a 9th place in the Superpole race. He had 2 crashes in race 1 yesterday afternoon, one at turn 6 and one at turn 2, but has managed to score not only just 1 point, but possibly the most important, because it allows him to climb from P15 to P9 for race 2 here. 4th row of the grid with Xavi Vierque, Michael Ruben Rinaldi and Scott Redding. Vierque came home in 7th position from the same grid position in race 1 yesterday afternoon. Suffered that turn 6 crash that's ruled out his teammate Iker Lecuona here. Xavi Vierque drops down from 7th to 10th on the grid. He's also got a long lap penalty to serve, and it ends a run of 17 consecutive races for him in the points. Yeah,
and for Xavi, it's been a very consistent end to the season, and still has that opportunity to move himself up into the top 10 in the standings, but needs another top 10 finish, and with the long lap penalty, that's going to be difficult.
Yeah, 6 points the gap to Remy Gardner, who's absent this weekend as a result of his wrist injury, but Iker Lecuona was tied on points with Xavi Vierque. P11 here for Michael Ruben Rinaldi, so dropping 2 places from his original Superpole effort of P9. Retired with mechanical difficulties in race 1, just when he looked set for one of his best race results with Moto Corsa. This will be his 222nd, and for now at least, his last appearance with Ducati, a record for the Bologna manufacturer. Completing that 4th row, Scott Redding, last of 3 years on BMW machinery for him. Bonovo will be moving to the Ducati in 2025, and frankly, Redding will be glad to be rid of it. 14th place in race 1 and only 12th in the Superpole race this morning.
Yeah, for Scott, it's been such a tough sled on the BMW since he got onto it. It's a bike that doesn't suit his style. The Ducati does, and for the Bonovo team, they've made a big investment to make sure that everything is ready for next season, and it's great that Scott's going to be on the grid for them.
Yes, and we've seen, of course, the evidence that Scott Redding can compete on that Ducati. That's where he started his World SBK career, with the factory team, of course. So familiar machinery for him to jump onto next season, and let's hope he is back among the front runners, because it's bizarre to see him running around outside the top 10 at the moment. He's 14th in the championship. On to row number 5 then, a couple of riders who narrowly missed out on qualifying on the 3rd row here. So Dominic Egerter will have to start again from P13. That's where he qualified originally. 9th he managed to come through for in race 1. Felt he could have gone as high as 7th, but just missed out in the latter stages against Bautista in the Superpole race. So a lot of work for him to do here. Axel Bassani, 8th position in race 1 for him. That was some good work through from 14th on the grid. Unfortunately, he could make no progress in the Superpole race this morning, so that's where he starts once again.
Yeah, and for Bassani, it's been a better weekend as well. Obviously, for Kawasaki, they've had a couple of days testing here with him, and they've been able to at least show a little bit more from Bassani this weekend, and he'll want to finish the season by trying to battle it out for top 12 would be a decent result.
Completing the 5th row of the grid, Jonathan Ray down in 15th position. Obviously originally qualified in 16th place. Riders further down the order have gained a place as a result of withdrawals. So 11th in race 1, 11th in the Superpole race, but we have seen a fair amount of Jonathan Rea through this weekend. There is some potential there. Behind, on the 6th row of the grid, we've got Sam Lowes, Tito Rabat and Brad Ray. Sam Lowes qualifying down the order. It's really the worst we've seen from him in a Superpole session, and that's where he finished in the Superpole race. But he did have a good effort in race 1, coming through for 13th.
End of a rookie season, not just for Sam, but also for the Mark VDS team. And it takes time to be able to get all of your procedures in place whenever you've got so many new staff, you getting used to the championship.
Kiko, down to you on the grids.
Oh, it's lovely and warm out here, Alex. I'm stood with Gim Rodder. Gim, emotional times, the last race in green. How do you feel?
Yeah, time arrived, and it's the last dance with the green colors from our side. So we're gonna try to enjoy as much possible and get a good remember. And I try to give that the biggest show to the fans. And then, tomorrow will be a new day and different targets. And we're gonna be there to achieve it.
What's the potential in race 2?
Okay, it's hard race. Of course, there's 2 riders in this weekend which are so fast with Toprak and Bulega. So we're gonna try to stay in the podium. And it's not easy because there's less grip than this morning on the track, and we need to manage this less grip to perform our best. So I don't know. Let's see how it's going.
Have a good race, Gim, and congratulations on this era of Provac.
Okay, thanks.
Sam Lowes, Tito Rabat and Brad Ray on row number 6. On now to row 7, Tetsuta Nagashima, his second World SBK round, appeared in Phillip Island for the Australian round in 2022. Had a couple of top 10 finishes there. Third Honda alongside Lecuona and Vierke this weekend. He's competed with them in the Suzuka 8 Hours in his homeland. Alessandro Del Bianco lining up from P20 here, his third World SBK appearance of this season. He replaced Dominic Egerter in Magny-Cours and rode the second Moto X bike in Cremona. Now a different ride, replacing Remy Gardner, who's out with a broken wrist. Behind him on the grid, Philip Oertel completes row 7, his final appearance in World SBK as well. Taz McKenzie, Tommy Bridewell and Ivo Lopez on row 8, and Luca Bernardi completing your 25-rider field. The same starting grid on the front row as we had for the Superpole race this morning. Bulega, Razgatlioglu and Lowes.